So your queens are staying back and your bees are going out on missions. Now, there are different types of bees, both queens and male bees, and we have Genesis and Generations and Gen Z. Now, the generations are going to be subdivided into Gen 1, 2, and 3. The biggest difference here is going to be the maximum stat they can have on each category. And Generation Z bees, those cannot be traded because they are not NFTs. They will be bound to your wallet, and with some recent updates, after a while they will retire and no longer be used. But that we will go over in a different Gen Z video, probably in a couple of weeks. Now, Genesis and Generations bees, being Gen 1, 2, and 3, are all fundamentally the same. They don't retire, they don't have a mission cap, and everything you're going to be doing with them is just based on their stats. The main difference you'll see is Genesis bees can go to any zone regardless of endurance. So your Gen 1, 2, and 3 bees will be capped to what lands they can harvest and hunt on based on their endurance stat. So that will have to be upgraded if you want to reach those further out zones 6, 7, 8. And so you're going to have to be mindful of that if you're seeing those closer lands in zone 1, 2, 3 being overcrowded and you want a solution. Maybe picking up some Genesis bees could be an easy way just to get out of those heavily crowded lands. There's also a difference in the queen bee and regular bee eggs. A queen bee egg will always hatch a queen, and a normal bee egg will always hatch a just normal male worker bee. So don't be buying a bunch of eggs hoping to hatch one or the other, because that is predetermined in the egg. The queens, the Genesis queens, are very good. If you have the amount of capital, I would highly recommend, if you're starting a hive, if you're getting into the game, being able to pick one of those up. They do have the highest cooldown reduction.
Recommend if you're starting a hive, if you're getting into the game, being able to pick one of those up. They do have the highest cooldown reduction.
They can also
recommend if you're starting a hive, if you're getting into the game, being able to pick one of those up. They do have the highest cooldown reduction. They can
also Honeyland, the game we have today, is Universe 1, and there's going to be more games, kind of a little more in depth than maybe a Bumble Bash or a Word Puzzle, that incorporates queens and bees in a second universe. That's coming out. It should be relatively soon. I don't remember the exact time frame, so I'm not going to try to say what it is, but it should be coming out soon. And so Genesis queens will be able to move between these universes, and you just need that one. Whereas Generations bees will probably have to be hatched per universe. And then Gen Z queens, those are just for your Gen Z bees. Now breeding is going to include both a queen and a male bee. So you have your Genesis queens have unlimited breed.
Alright, so let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into Web3 and specifically the Ronin network and what this means for games like Axie Infinity, but also
Take a little bit of a
for the bigger strategy that's happening around projects in the Web3 land. So we'll break it all down for you. My name is Paul Barrow. I'll go back into TechPath. All right, so a couple of things I want to hit on just to kind of give you guys a framework of, what happens in Web3 gaming, because it's a little bit of a gaming culture. I'll go to, our friend Stash. He's been hit pretty hard here, of course, with the Rona community. And they're basically talking about a couple of things with Axie Infinity. He's probably mentioned Axie 5 to 6 times over 3 years in videos. And he's basically claiming Axie's not dead, but it's, the game is not what he wants it to be. However, with that being said, if you look at the performance of Axie Infinity, they're still number one on the play to earn chart. And if you look at their social score, let me kind of zoom in on that right there. I mean, they're number one by a long way. So if you look at their marketplace also, the marketplace overall stats right now, if you look at the 30-day, I mean, you can kind of see this volume at over 1.3 million in ETH. Total sales, 220,000. Axie sold still around 200,000. So this game is still very, very active in the Web3 ecosystem. Further into this, one of the big things that happened with Axie, of course, was the Pixel migration. Pixel, of course, moving over from Polygon into the Ronin network. That was a big win. If you look further into this on key metrics right here, just to give you guys an example, look at this rise. This is 180 days. And this is active daily users past 180, and you can kind of see this rise here. Sure, Pixel's definitely one of the viral games, and of course that being on the Ronin network is part of that. We're going to get into this with our interview today with the Axie team as well. I want to go over to CoinGecko just to give you guys an example also, which this is the thing. Ronin is now at an all-time high in terms of market cap. If you look at the volume on Ronin, also very impressive, holding it around 10 million. Not bad in terms of this period of marketplace. And if you compare this to one of the top 10 tokens out there, Cardano, in the same period, also in September, also hovering around 10 million. So for the fact that Ronin is doing this much in terms of transaction, this is a big deal. This is a big deal, I think, for Web3, but it's also, I think, a big initiative for what's happening within gaming. But the point is we're trying to go through and do our 2023 and 24 Web3 and gaming predictions. One of the things that we do is our research team builds our checklist for all of these projects. And this is the checklist for Ronin and Axie. And we look at it on these categories. Active community, they've done it. Mass appeal demographic, they've done it. Self-custody and top wallets, not there just yet. Cross-platform. Console mobile, I would say that there is some attempt there, but it's not fully integrated cross-platform at this point. Multi-game ecosystem, definitely in play. NFTs on major marketplaces, that is not available right now. Easy onboarding. This is another problem, and I'll talk to Alex about this as we get into it, but not completely there. We're going to give them a chance to kind of respond to this. Innovative. Definitely. Creator economy, I think there would be maybe an argument there as to whether they have one or we think it's a little bit weaker. CEO, absolutely visionary and adaptable and understands the market. And then, interoperability with third-party games, I think that's a question mark that still needs to be answered. We've done an illustration for you that will make it very simple to understand, I think. And it's what we call the walled garden versus the network effect. Now, these are the gaming ecosystems that we think are doing really well. You've got Gala, a walled garden. It's closed. You've got Ronin. With Pixels coming in, that starts to kind of open this up a bit. It's interesting. And then things like Immutable X, which also with Beam coming over from Avalanche, also starting to get interesting. And then Flow, also a walled garden. But if you compare this out here into the wallets that are out there, many of these struggle to get that interoperability. And then you look at things like Sandbox, Mochaverse, all those projects that you see down there, and then Solana, which seems to be opening up pretty much a small castle for Web3 gaming. Obviously, we saw Honeyland, Star Atlas in there. But the interesting thing for Solana, because it is an open network, is the potential for an EVM bridge, which could happen through Neon. So we've kind of covered that. That's a little token right there in the corner. So that kind of gives you a visual on what's happening in the Web3 gaming space. So I want to invite in our guest today, and of course, that's Alex coming over from Sky Mavis, joining our show today. So let's just jump over to Alex. Hey, Alex, how are you, man?
I'm great, Paul. Thanks. Happy to be back.
Yeah, it's good. The last time we had you on, I was looking at our YouTube channel 1 year ago, and of course, we were in the depths of the bear market at that time. And we've covered Axie over the years quite a bit. We've had you on a few times, so we appreciate you coming in to talk about this. I want to go back to our checklist and just get your opinion on this, especially in the cross-platform console mobile side of things. Argue that with me for a little bit. Where are you guys in terms of mobile integration?
When you consider these platforms like the Apple stores of the world, right now Origins is available on Google Play, but still not on the app stores like fully. So there is a little bit of a way to go there, but it's a priority for us. Axie Classic, which has just been re-released, we're working on getting that on the Apple Store, which should be quite exciting. So there's a lot to look forward there. But I would say that Axie being mobile first should be counted as at least a semi check mark there.
Okay, all right, we'll get the semi check mark. Let's go into a little bit about the Pixels migration from Polygon. Why do you think that this occurred? What was obviously with the team that is integrated now within Ronin, what was the I guess the mission here?
Ronin Network is still a curated chain. We are only working with a select few parties in more of a publisher type of relationship. So we can't actually work with hundreds of different games, and that is by design. Because we think that by focusing our efforts on a couple of great founders and games, we are able to influence their design decisions and help them avoid making the same mistakes that we did with Axie, for example, so that they can succeed even more. So we look for experimentation and fast iterations. And we think that Luke from the Pixels team, he has that in abundance. So it was a great fit there. Jeff actually met him in Japan face-to-face for an Axie meetup. And I think they had a great conversation, which is kind of what led our team to take a deeper look. And when we were observing Pixels, we found that they had a core community, they had some great loops already, but we felt like they didn't really get the attention they deserved from Polygon. So they had about 10,000 daily actives, and after the Ronin migration, it went all the way up to 127,000. So what we call that is the Ronin effect, and we're very happy. And right now, I think you showed initially, it's been growing massively, and we're very excited about even the native token launch there, which is going to be called Pixels. So a lot to look forward for when it comes to Pixels, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to the iterative approach that the team has.
Farmland over from Pixels. This is still riding on Ethereum, though, within OpenSea. How much of Pixels is running on Ronin?
So actually the land itself is going to be migrated as well. So this is the ownership of the land is the only thing that's not migrated right now. The rest of it is fully on Ronin Network, and the land is going to be coming. It's some technical work left to do there, and also I think some incentive design to make sure that people are actually migrating their Pixels land over, because whenever you do cross-chain bridges for NFTs, it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, well, it has a lot of the DNA, I think, of Axie Infinity in general. Obviously that's migrated because of the fact that you had so many players that were able to adopt it so quickly. So kudos to what you've done there. What about interoperability? I was looking at this tweet right here in Mochaverse and Pixels Online, Phase 2 now live. But what about interoperability with Pixels? Is this going to open up some opportunities for you guys?
Axie interoperability means an interconnected universe where Axie, game characters are traveling between Axie-specific type of games, and then eventually opening it up as these as the technology gets stronger and the IP gets stronger as well. And then you have a game like Pixels, which is of course pixelated. It's much easier for them to add different utilities from other games, so that they can add all of these other, let's say, NFT, for example, collections. So that's another way of doing interoperability. I think it's a good start, but for Axie, we want to make the Axie universe bigger with different interoperable experiences within that first, before we start adding new IPs, especially kind of opening it up fully. I think we will do Axie IP partnership, let's say, with bigger, different, like they said, Web 2 IPs, and we're exploring that as well, but we haven't announced it yet.
Okay, all right. So in terms of the roadmap for additional projects going, I was looking at your ecosystem right here. You've got obviously Axie, Zoids, Perion. A couple of these, many people some will recognize, some may not. Why would this not be? I mean, I'm looking at Beam or things that are happening within Avalanche and Solana. I mean, there's a lot of building going on over there, Alex. Why would we not see more projects coming into Ronin, especially now that Pixels has paved the way? Does this mean that we're going to see a lot more?
So it comes down to the curated approach. We get, I would say, tens of applications of games that want to launch on Ronin every single day. Right now, we are carefully picking and choosing the teams that should come onto Ronin, but it won't be like that forever. This is a small leak here. Some of the Ronin community members know this, but a part of the roadmap is actually opening Ronin up so that anyone will be able to deploy on Ronin. So I'm very excited to do that, hopefully sometime in 2024. I think depending a little bit on... sorry?
That's going to be huge. That'll be big.
Yeah, to me that's something I'm very excited about, and also that has to come with scaling solutions as well. So we actually expect to announce our scaling plans in Q1, so that Ronin can start supporting hundreds and if not thousands of games, and then you can think about Sky Navis and the Navis Hub as the main place where we will curate teams. So right now we are permissioned in the sense that nobody can deploy on Ronin Network unless they are working with us. In the future, anyone will be able to deploy, but if they then get attention from the community members, that's when we will pick them up and we will work even more closely with them from the Navis perspective. And that's the plan for 2024.
Okay, so that's a big statement, because that does put you guys in the league of a lot of these other chains that have kind of done that, in terms of drawing in developers. So the abilities to deploy within the Ronin network, I like that. It'll be interesting too, because you guys do have a bit of an edge in the marketplace in terms of player community. I would say still one of the strongest, if not the strongest. We showed your sentiment score there from play to earn, still number one by far. In terms of that. So, and I like the fact that you're opening this up to so many new developers. So that's a good scenario.
Yeah, and I don't know, I think INX has maybe 2,200 or something on-chain users. It's in a totally different league of all of these other blockchain networks that are specified for games. And I think the counter argument there is, they have a lot of different things in the pipeline, but that is meaningless if some of these teams can't ship. The only thing we care about is data. Where are the users? And our belief is that if the users are using Ronin Network, they should also actually, my belief was that whatever product that I used when I was kind of a degen back in the day, I should just buy those tokens, because what else should I be buying? That's the thing that I use every day. So it's a very bullish thing, I think, for Ronin Network that we actually have all of these active players. And I think it's actually undervalued by the market right now. And of course, it's actually hard to buy Ronin as well, because it's not listed on Binance or Coinbase.
And I think that is the thing that some people are missing. But the fact that you're opening up Ronin for developers, that's going to create, I think, some very, very good economies of scale because of the capability of growing. And Pixels has kind of already proven that in terms of just how quickly they've affected the Ronin network. Let's talk about Apple for a second. You guys rolled out a light version of Axie Infinity on the Apple Store. And I understand why. I mean, the issue with Apple is still a well-known issue. There have been some game devs. We talked to the Honeyland team here just this week, and they've kind of got a unique way to kind of go around the process of the App Store. Still getting, they're still extracting a 30% tax, because the iOS ecosystem definitely not going away. Mobile gaming definitely not going away. How do the two meet?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm loving what Honeyland is doing. I think it's quite interesting to follow. As a smaller actor in the space, I think they can be more aggressive than what we can be. Whenever we try to ship something on the app stores, we have, if not the CEO himself looking at it, definitely feels like there's a lot of product people looking at our releases. So it also limits a little bit of our opportunities there. So we've actually taken a step back, and what we've said is that we have to be very aggressive on the Web3 side and really cater to the I guess get people involved through that, and then it has to come organically, like the desire from people to own their digital assets in a new way through these app stores. And when they start demanding it, that's when the app stores are going to change. Of course, we're going to be a part of it, a part of the process. Just like what Epic Games is doing right now, they're fighting Apple. We'll join the fight to make sure that Apple is respecting people's digital property rights, which is massively important in this day and age. I think, at the end of the day, that's what we're fighting for here, and that's what will get people excited about the space. And when I'm looking at, I saw your initial segment here when we talk about Crypto Stash and his opinion on Axie, and we see this so much about people having oh, the game is not good. Actually, people love Axie Infinity, even the classic version of the game. The rock paper scissors type of gameplay. There's critical strikes in there. It's a lot of excitement. It has a strong emotional connection in people's heart, and I don't think you should underestimate that. But that is not to say that Axie is moving into an amazing place right now, because the quality of the IP is just getting stronger and stronger. And I think you can probably put a segment in here where you maybe show the trailer of the new Axie Infinity trailer that we released on a couple of days ago, which has over 2.7 million views on Twitter. Which I think explains which shows just where Axie is going from a quality perspective. Axie is going to be a multi generational IP. That's what I'm building towards. I think what the Axie community is getting annoyed at is we are willfully sometimes being misrepresented, or they might look at some old clips, or they might talk about as some kind of Ponzi scheme, and it's just not where we are at right now.
If you look at some projects out there, they've been able to crack the code on how to get onboarding done. A good one example that we've played and tested here in our own research lab is Honeyland. Honeyland was able to kind of bridge this. We've seen the functionality. Granted, you're getting a 30% tax on whether you're buying the HXD, which is the token that Honeyland runs. It's basically the RON token for them. And the good thing is, yes, there is a fee there. They're backloading it with some other benefits. So there are some interesting tactics that are being done within the iOS ecosystem. Why not go that route? I mean, because that seems like a solution that could work for Axie. Why not go that route?
So for Ronin, the Ronin wallet, actually, we released the first version, which had Web3 auth, so you could log in and create a user with just your email. And now we're actually shipping an updated version to that, which is using MPC. I don't see any problem with actually doing the way that the Honeyland is doing it. It's actually just about how will the Apple stores around the world accept it. But definitely the flow that we're heading into, and it is possible today as well. It's just not for Axie as an IP, which is so big and is being seen by everyone. If we do try to ship some of these features, it won't be accepted. So that's why it's not in there.
Obviously, within Solana, there is an open network capacity for this. What about looking at an EVM? Whether it's using something like Neon or others, of being able to kind of bridge into other ecosystems with what you guys are doing. Is there any potential for that?
I think there's a lot of potential for this, especially as we start opening Ronin up. We'll see more bridges. I don't see any problem that people will be able to migrate from Solana, or even the other way, like if that's where they want to. At the end of the day, this is about owning your own stuff, right? Owning your digital property.
Right.
So that you should be able to do what you want with it, and that's where we are headed. Like I like thinking about parallel chains or parallel EVM chains as a potential scaling solution, something that I'm very interested in right now, and because I think Solana is doing great things when it comes to scaling, and it's showing that maybe Ethereum can be surpassed. But
right.
I actually think that the EVM or the Ethereum ecosystem should be leaning into ecosystems like Ronin even more, because we're actually going to be bringing in the players. I'm looking, like, my vision for Sky Mavis is to be the place where billions of people create their first wallets, because we monetize through wallets. Whenever they are in our wallet, similar to MetaMask, when they click swap, that's when Sky Mavis makes our revenue. When they use our marketplace, that's where we make our revenue. But even the Ronin wallet down the line can also be opened up for other chains, so that people that come into the ecosystem to kind of play Ronin specific games, maybe they will just have the Ronin wallet for life.
but at the same time, fees are going to always be the issue. And I know that even we've tested within Ronin wallets where the fees are a little bit high. And if you look at what we've seen within the ETH ecosystem, I think that's why Solana has been able to crack the code here, especially in some of these games that have a lot of transactions, which it's clear that you are going to have that with things like Pixel and obviously with what you guys are doing in terms of opening up the Ronin network. How are you combating the fee situation?
Literally just right now, I transferred one RON, and I think the fee to transfer one RON on Ronin network is,
we did this morning. This was a 10 USD Ronin transaction.
You mean you bought it from someone or you transferred on the chain itself? This is a buy. This has to be a purchase, I think. Yeah, you were buying RON with USD, right? So you're onboarding to the chain through fiat conversion, right? Yeah, I think that is a different matter because you are integrating with fiat on ramps, right? Okay. So there's a fiat there's a fee there that these guys take, the banks and the fiat provider. That could be Transact or Ramp Network or whichever else you're using. But when you transfer on the Ronin network from wallet to wallet, I just did a transaction right now. It's in the cents, like it's 0.000042 RON. So
okay. So what? But getting onboarding, obviously that's going to be a big challenge because this is typically the way people would be coming into the network if they're brand new to the game.
Yeah, I mean, so they can also onboard directly through Binance, for example. But Binance, the relationship is quite solid, so that's another entry point where the gas fees is very low. But at the end of the day, I think it's the same issue that everyone has when they are onboarding into this ecosystem, right? Because you have to pay the banking the banking fee.
Let's talk about SocialFi for a moment. And we've had and looked at a variety of different SocialFi platforms, some of which have recently gone, a little bit viral, but at the same time they've also recoiled. Not a lot of transactions, definitely not a lot of user growth. When you look at the Web3 gaming space, and I was on with the Murray guys not too long ago, and they introduced us to this thing they call Guild Tech. And what are your thoughts on this, of building these guilds, or these guilds having the ability to build social interactions with players to create, kind of almost like a hive effect in terms of growth? You guys kind of had that with guilds in the beginning with Axie. So you guys were the OG of this. So what are your thoughts about SocialFi in the future?
I think it's interesting what they're doing with Guild Tech. At the end of the day, it has to stem from a quality product, many users, of course, interacting with it. To me, it's like another financial layer on top of it, which enables more jobs, actually. So when I look at these digital, like the blockchain games of the future, I see digital worlds. Right now, there are smaller digital nations. And when I say digital nations, I mean that there are some things that people can do, right? They can play the game, they can spend some tokens, but you need to expand the nation so that you have more things to spend money on. And that could be, let's say different type of games or more things inside those games, like another feature, right? All of these things help build out the nation, make it so that people have more money to spend on, more things to speculate on, so the network effects become stronger. And to me, that's the future of blockchain games. And that's really when kind of you can see all of these other more financial layers come into play. But we need more. I think we need a core community. We need a core game, and then eventually you can start building all of these features on top of it, which add more value to the nation, so to say.
Yeah, for sure. Talking about the expansion of networks and the gaming ecosystems, one of the ones that we're watching right now is Netflix. Netflix is continuing to grow their gaming ecosystem. Why not drop Origins into, the playable version into something like a Netflix, to where people could at least kind of discover this and really kind of expand on the Axie universe of people wanting to learn how to play it?
Thought you would like to know. Satoshi sends his regards. Look for Bitwise, my friends.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea, and something that we actually get a lot of ideas from the community to add different distribution platforms, and we will do that as well. So actually, what we are exploring is partnering with different Web2 studios to use the Axie IP. There are a couple of games that are kind of hidden out there that I won't say the name of, that we're trying out. We're seeing the retention metrics. We're seeing how does it work, and I think we're just. I think Axie will have so many different type of games because the IP in itself is so strong and colorful, vibrant, and we have enough funds to kind of keep developing it. So we'll keep trying, and then eventually we'll keep distributing the game in certain places.
Alex, I want to hit on a couple of things here before we cut out, and one of course is AR/VR, and you and I had an interesting conversation on this, and it was in our last video. I want to play a clip for you. Let's go to that clip real quick, and I'll play it for you. Because when you think about emerging markets, this I think has been an underperforming or underserved segment of the globe for quite some time. How far before we see VR coming your way?
Probably the VR world, if it gets to the point where it's as high fidelity and feels as normal as real life, then yes, I think it's going to be great. And then we might do something like that in Axie. But I think for me, I'm not the terrible bull on VR for now.
On the VR side,
are you?
Yeah. Well, I look at how far Meta has come in 1 year. So I think this MetaQuest 2 device, it will tell us real quick if we have a winner. All right, and of course, MetaQuest has told us. And I was looking at the data on what's happening here on the app. #1 for this holiday season. And that's a big leap forward in terms of AR/VR. Would you not agree, or what's your position on AR/VR right now?
I don't really think it's changed. I think we need to see more commercial success. It still hasn't bled into my feed. Basically, I don't think the benefit is strong enough to make me take the next step yet. And I might be like a good person to when I say I'm bullish, we're probably late because I'm not so interested in that tech right now. So yeah, maybe that's a good touch point.
Obviously, Meta has done a pretty good job with being able to roll this out. The likelihood is Apple, with their Vision product, is also going to go in this direction. I think I've got a clip on this to show as well. Let's cut to that clip real quick. I want to show you guys something here.
Really excited to announce that we now have access to Vision OS polyspatial tools that are available in Unity.
So you can build an existing Unity application, whether it's a mobile game or a full 3D game, and target the Vision OS platform. And this will build in this kind of windowed mode.
You can move it around. This is a bounded area, and therefore it's a shared space. So animations work, materials all transfer over. You can also see how we're getting some of the reflections from the real world, which makes this look really cool. And if you move the windows around, you can also see how it's all integrated into the Vision OS. Really cool demo where you can see that we are basically scrolling through our environment, but we're not going beyond the extended area of the bounding box. So this is just a really cool use case that I think we can use a lot for games.
Definitely some leaps forward. Is this a potential for Web3 games like what you guys are doing at Sky Mavis in the future? What are your thoughts?
Sure. I mean, so to me, it actually depends on what the consumer wants. And, when this tech actually becomes, like, when the platforms are big enough. So I would also say, I doubt that, they are looking at doing blockchain stuff right now because they have so much, they're trying to get into the mainstream with their own products. And I would say the same thing is true for blockchain in itself. It's just another tool in the toolbox, but the tools need to be better before we can actually see the real benefits. So that's what I'm focusing on for now. How can we show the real benefits of Web3 before we necessarily start using all other fancy tools, which also is another multiplier on difficulty. And I think we've started to see some of those mainstream things, like let's say the Mario Kart arcade GP VR, I guess it was called. To me, that's actually really cool. That's kind of, I want to see more of that stuff. And I want to see them, in the houses of my nieces. I want them to wish for, I want that game because I want to experience those new things. That's when you know that, that there's something special here.
Hey, Alex, it's always good to catch up with what you guys are doing at Sky Mavis. So thanks for letting us know about the new information happening for 2024. That's pretty cool that you guys are.
Yeah, I'm excited to release more on that stuff in a blog post. Of course, there's a lot of our community, which is very excited about this and wants to know the plan. It's been in the works for a long time when you look at the Ronin roadmap, but I think that the general market, is sleeping a little bit on that. So hopefully this should be a nice surprise. And more stuff is coming too when it comes to the Axie economy. And, we're always experimenting. Azure keeps saying, we're the OGs. We are. We're not, we're planning to keep building in the space because we believe that there's a massive opportunity here. We came to win. That's it. You're not.
I like it.
I think we're proving that.
That's the attitude to have, man. Take no prisoners. Hey, it was good seeing you, Alex. Thank you so much for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so maybe you guys are over on the podcast side of things. Make sure and jump over here to the YouTube channel. You get a chance to see the visuals of what these podcasts look like because there's a lot. When you get into a Web3 podcast, you really need to understand what is going on right now, what is happening in the gaming community, why this is so important, not only to society, but also just with what's going to happen in this tech in the future. So jump over here to the YouTube channel. It's real simple. Just search Paul Bear Network. You'll find us. If you're not following me on X, you can do that also. It's very simple. Just at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.
Spectrum Móvil es el proveedor de servicio móvil de más rápido crecimiento en el país. Y ahora es el momento de cambiarte. Obtén Spectrum Móvil ilimitado por $29.99 por tu primera línea y cada línea. Haz clic o visita una tienda de Spectrum hoy.
Remember George Washington, you know how he died? Well-meaning physicians bled him to death. And this was the most important patient in the country, maybe in the history of the country. And we bled him to death, trying to help him. So when you're actually inflating the money supply at 7%, but you're calling it 2% because you want to help the economy, you're literally bleeding the free market to death. But the sad fact is George Washington went along with it because he thought that they were going to do him good. And the majority of the society, most companies, most conventional thinkers, the working class, they go along with this because they think that someone has their best interest in mind. And the people that are bleeding them to death believe that prescription because their mental models are just so defective.
The following is a conversation with Michael Saylor, one of the most prominent and brilliant Bitcoin proponents in the world. He is the CEO of MicroStrategy, founder of Saylor Academy, graduate of MIT, and Michael is one of the most fascinating and rigorous thinkers I've ever gotten a chance to explore ideas with. He can effortlessly zoom out to the big perspectives of human civilization and human history, and zoom back in to the technical details of blockchains, markets, governments, and financial systems. This is the Lex Fridman Podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Michael Saylor. Let's start with the big question of truth and wisdom. When advanced humans or aliens or AI systems, let's say 5 to 10 centuries from now, look back at Earth on this early 21st century, how much do you think they would say we understood about money and economics, or even about engineering, science, life, death, meaning, intelligence, consciousness, all the big, interesting questions?
I think they would probably give us a B- on engineering, on all the engineering things, the hard sciences.
A passing grade.
Like we're doing okay. We're working our way through rockets and jets and electric cars and electricity transport systems and nuclear power and space flight and the like. And if you look at the walls that grace the great court at MIT, it's full of all the great thinkers, and they're all pretty admirable. If you could be with Newton or Gauss or Madame Curie or Einstein, you would respect them. I would say they'd give us like a D- on economics, like an F+ or a D-.
You have an optimistic vision. First of all, optimistic vision of engineering, because everybody you've listed not everybody, but most people you've listed, is just over the past couple of centuries. And maybe it stretches a little farther back, but mostly all the cool stuff we've done in engineering is the past couple of centuries.
I mean, Archimedes, had his virtues. I studied the history of science at MIT, and I also studied aerospace engineering. And so I clearly have a bias in favor of science. And if I look at the past 10,000 years and I consider all of the philosophy and the politics and their impact on the human condition, I think it's a wash. For every politician that came up with a good idea, another politician came up with a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not clear to me that, most of the political and philosophical, contributions to the human race and the human conditions have advanced so much. I mean, we're still taking guidance and admiring Aristotle and Plato and Seneca and the like. And on the other hand, if you think about what has made the human condition better, fire, water, harnessing of wind energy, like you try to row across an ocean, right? Not easy.
And for people who are just listening or watching, there's a beautiful, sexy ship from the 16th, 17th century.
This is a 19th century handmade model of a 17th century sailing ship, which is of the type that the Dutch East Indias Company used to sail the world and trade. So that was made, the original was made sometime in the 1600s, and then this model is made in the 19th century by individuals.
Both the model and the ship itself is engineering at its best. And just imagine, just like rockets flying out to space, how much hope this filled people with, exploring the unknown, going into the mystery. Both the entrepreneurs and the business people and the engineers and just humans. What's out there to be discovered?
Yeah, the metaphor of human beings leaving shore, sailing across the horizon, risking their lives in pursuit of a better life is an incredibly powerful one. In 1900, I suppose the average life expectancy is 50. During the Revolutionary War, while our founding fathers were fighting to establish, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, the Constitution, average life expectancy of it's like 32, somewhere between 32 and 36. So all the sound and the fury doesn't make you live past 32, but what does, right? Antibiotics, conquest of infectious diseases. If we understand the science of infectious disease, sterilizing a knife and harnessing antibiotics gets you from 50 to 70, and that happened fast, right? That happens from 1900 to 1950 or something like that. And I think if you look at the human condition, you ever get on one of those rowing machines where they actually keep track of your watts output when you're on the, it's like 200 is a lot. Okay, 200 is a lot. So a kilowatt hour is like all the energy that a trained athlete can deliver in a day. And probably not 1% of the people in the world could deliver a kilowatt hour in a day. And the commercial value of a kilowatt hour, the retail value is 11 cents today. And the wholesale value is 2 cents. And so you have to look at the contribution of politicians and philosophers and economists to the human condition. And it's like at best a wash one way or the other. And then if you look at the contribution of John D. Rockefeller when he delivered you a barrel of oil, and the energy in oil, liquid energy, or the contribution of Tesla, as we deliver electricity, and what's the impact on the human condition if I have electric power, if I have chemical power, if I have wind energy, if I can actually set up a reservoir, create a dam, spin a turbine, and generate energy from a hydraulic source, that's extraordinary, right? And so our ability to cross the ocean, our ability to grow food, our ability to live, it's technology that gets the human race from a brutal life where life expectancy is 30 to a world where life expectancy is 80.
You gave a D minus to The Economist. So are they too, like the politicians, a wash in terms of there's good ideas and bad ideas, and that tiny delta between good and bad is how you squeak past the F plus onto the D minus territory?
I think most economic ideas are bad ideas. Like
Most.
Take us back to MIT, and you want to solve a fluid dynamics problem, like design the shape of the hull of that ship, or you want to design an airfoil, a wing, or if you want to design an engine or a nozzle in a rocket ship, you wouldn't do it with simple arithmetic. You wouldn't do it with a scalar. There's not a single number, right? It's vector math. Computational fluid dynamics is n-dimensional, higher level math, complicated stuff. So when an economist says the inflation rate is 2%, that's a scalar. And when an economist says it's not a problem to print more money because the velocity of the money is very low, monetary velocity is low, that's another scalar. Okay, so the truth of the matter is inflation is not a scalar. Inflation is an n-dimensional vector. Money velocity is not a scalar. Saying what's the velocity of money? Oh, it's slow or it's fast. It ignores the question of what medium is the money moving through. In the same way that, what's the speed of sound? Okay, well, what is sound, right? Sound is a compression wave. It's energy moving through a medium, but the speed is different. So, for example, the speed of sound through air is different than the speed of sound through water. And sound moves faster through water. It moves faster through a solid, and it moves faster through a stiffer solid. So there isn't one.
What is the fundamental problem with the way economists reduce the world down to a model? Is it too simple, or is it just even the first principles of constructing the model is wrong?
I think that the fundamental problem is if you see the world as a scalar, you simply pick the one number which supports whatever you want to do, and you ignore the universe of other consequences from your behavior.
In general, I don't know if you've heard of Eric Wasson has been talking about this with gauge theory. So different kinds of approaches from the physics world, from the mathematical world, to extend past this scalar view of economics. So gauge theory is one way that comes from physics. Do you find that way of exploring economics interesting? So outside of cryptocurrency, outside of the actual technologies and so on, just analysis of how economics works. Do you find that interesting?
Yeah, I think that if we're going to want to really make any scientific progress in economics, we have to apply much more computationally intensive and richer forms of mathematics.
So simulation, perhaps, or?
Yeah, when I was at MIT, I studied system dynamics. They taught it at the Sloan School. It was developed by Jay Forrester, who was an extraordinary computer scientist. And when we created models of economic behavior, they were all multidimensional, nonlinear models. So if you want to describe how anything works in the real world, you have to start with the concept of feedback. If I double the price of something, demand will fall, and attempts to create supply will increase, and there will be a delay before the capacity increases. There'll be an instant demand change, and there'll be rippling effects throughout every other segment of the economy, downstream and upstream of such a thing. So it's kind of common sense. But most economics, most classical economics, it's always, taught with linear models, fairly simplistic linear models. And oftentimes, I'm really shocked today that the entire mainstream dialogue of economics has been captured by scalar arithmetic. For example, if you read any article in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, right? They just refer to it. There's an inflation number, or the CPI, or the inflation rate is X. And if you look at all the historic studies of the impact of inflation, generally they're all based upon the idea that inflation equals CPI, and then they try to extrapolate from that, and you just get nowhere with it.
So, at the very least, we should be considering inflation and other economics concept as a nonlinear dynamical system. So, nonlinearity, and also just embracing the full complexity of just how the variables interact, maybe through simulation, maybe have some interesting models around that.
Wouldn't it be refreshing if somebody for once published a table of the change in price of every product, every service, and every asset in every place over time?
You said table. Some of that also is the task of visualization, how to extract from this complex set of numbers patterns that somehow indicate something fundamental about what's happening. So, like, summarization of data is still important. Perhaps summarization not down to a single scale of value, but looking at that whole sea of numbers, you have to find patterns. Like, what is inflation in a particular sector? What is maybe change over time? Maybe different geographical regions, things of that nature. I think that's kind of, I don't know even what that task is. That's what you could look at machine learning. You can look at AI with that perspective, which is like, how do you represent what's happening efficiently as possible? That's never going to be a single number, but it might be a compressed model that captures something beautiful, something fundamental about what's happening.
It's an opportunity, for sure, right? If we take, for example, during the pandemic, the response of the political apparatus was to lower interest rates to zero and to start buying assets, in essence, printing money. And the defense was there's no inflation.
Yeah.
But of course, you had one part of the economy where it was locked down, so it was illegal to buy anything. But you couldn't, it was either illegal or it was impractical. So it would be impossible for demand to manifest. So of course there is no inflation. On the other hand, there was instantaneous, immediate inflation in another part of the economy. For example, you lowered the interest rates to zero. At one point we saw the swap rate on the 30-year note go to 72 basis points. Okay, that means that the value of a long-dated bond immediately inflates. So the bond market had hyperinflation within minutes of these financial decisions. The asset market had hyperinflation. We had what you call a K-shaped recovery, what we affectionately call a K-shaped recovery. Main Street shut down. Wall Street recovered all within 6 weeks. The inflation was in the assets, like in the stocks, in the bonds. If you look today, you see that typical house, according to the Case-Shiller Index today, is up 19.2% year over year. So if you're a first-time home buyer, the inflation rate is 19%. The formal CPI announced is 7.9%. You can pretty much create any inflation rate you want by constructing a market basket, right? A weighted basket of products or services or assets that yield you the answer. I think that, the fundamental failing of economists is first of all, they don't really have a term for asset inflation, right?
What's asset hyperinflation? You mentioned bond market, swap rate, and asset is where the majority of the hyperinflation happened. Yeah. What's inflation? What's hyperinflation? What's an asset? What's an asset market? I'm going to ask so many dumb questions.
In the conventional economic world, you would treat inflation as the rate of increase in price of a market basket of consumer products, defined by a government agency.
Okay. So they have traditional things that a regular consumer would be buying. The government selects like toilet paper, food, toaster, refrigerator, electronics, all that kind of stuff, and it's like a representative basket of goods that lead to a content existence on this earth for a regular consumer?
They define a synthetic metric, right? I mean, I'm going to say you should have 1,000 square foot apartment, and you should have a used car, and you should eat, 3 hamburgers a week. Now, 10 years go by, and the apartment costs more. I could adjust the market basket by they call them hedonic adjustments. I could decide that it used to be in 1970 you needed 1,000 square feet, but in the year 2020 you only need 700 square feet because we've miniaturized televisions and we've got more efficient electric appliances, and because things have collapsed into the iPhone, you just don't need as much space. So now it may be that the apartment costs 50% more, but after the hedonic adjustment, there is no inflation because I just downgraded the expectation of what a normal person should have.
So the synthetic nature of the metric allows for manipulation by people in power.
Pretty much. I guess my criticism of economists is rather than embracing inflation based upon its fundamental idea, which is the rate at which the price of things go up, right? They've been captured by mainstream conventional thinking to immediately equate inflation to the government-issued CPI or government-issued PCE or government-issued PPI measure, which was never the rate at which things go up. It's simply the rate at which a synthetic basket of products and services the government wishes to track go up. Now, the problem with that is two big things. One thing is the government gets to create the market basket, and so they keep changing what's in the basket over time. So, I mean, if I said 3 years ago you should go see 10 concerts a year, and the concert tickets now cost $200 each, now it's $2,000 a year to go see concerts. Now I'm in charge of